My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm 29, and this is the story of how I opened a cafe my parents laughed at, only to watch it become the place my successful brother can't stop talking about. If you enjoy real-life stories like mine, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. I'm standing behind the counter at Hearth Maple, my cafe at 6:42 a.m., tracing a fingertip along the grain of the reclaimed walnut bar I sanded myself. The espresso machine breathes in quiet hisses beside me. Outside, the streetlights along Larimer Street in downtown Denver are still blinking, the city waking up slow. I can smell the orange zest I grated into the muffin batter at 4, and the first cinnamon roll proving under a tea towel on the baker's rack. The lights are soft, the music low. It's the kind of morning that makes you believe in fresh starts. The door is still locked, but I'm not alone. My nerves and I are always here first. When I imagined opening day, I pictured my parents, Mark and Susan, at a corner table, hands around steaming cups, telling anyone who would listen, "Our daughter built this." I imagined my brother Evan offering a toast, not advice. My older sister Megan, snapping candid photos that didn't need filters because the moment was beautiful as is. Instead, on opening day 3 months ago, I stood with my apron tied too tight and a smile that hurt, waiting for a family that didn't come. That morning, my phone buzzed with a photo my mom sent to the family group chat. She and my dad flanking Evan, navy suit, perfect half Windsor, the familiar shine in his eyes, beneath a ballroom chandelier at a finance awards banquet. "Proud of our son tonight," the caption read. I'd stared at the screen so long, the batter skin on my blueberry muffins dried at the edges. My hands had actually trembled as I placed the tray in the oven. I told myself it didn't matter. Then the first customer came in, said the place felt like home, and I pretended I believed her. Some part of me felt 8 again, holding up a crooked ceramic cup from art class while Mom whispered, "We'll keep this in the garage for now, okay?" Some part of me felt 18, asking Dad if culinary school made sense, hearing him say, "Practical people earn practical paychecks, Lauren. Don't make life harder than it needs to be." And some part of me, the part that stayed up for a year baking out of a rental kitchen after my barista shifts ended at midnight, the part that bought a second-hand Hobart mixer instead of a couch, whispered back, "We'll see." This morning is quieter than opening day but louder in my head. I think about the night I signed the lease. The landlord slid the paper across a wobbly bistro table in the empty space, the air smelling faintly of old carpet and ceiling dust. I stared at the number. It looked like a dare. I said yes anyway. I called my parents from my car after, my voice light. There was a long pause. "You really think you can make a living selling croissants?" My dad asked. "Denver has a dozen coffee chains within a 5-block radius. Don't be naive." My mom cleared her throat and added, soft but sharp, "Sweetheart, sometimes dreams are just hobbies in disguise." I changed the subject. I told them I'd text the new address for Christmas. They told me they might be out of town. I set the first tray of morning buns in the oven now, and turned the dial on the timer with flurry fingers. The cafe feels like a living room I earned. Brick walls we scrubbed clean, a long pine shelf filled with mismatched mugs people donated, a wall of Polaroids labeled regulars. I unlock the front door at 7 exactly and prop it with the cast-iron maple leaf doorstop I found at a yard sale and spray-painted copper. The first person through the door is a construction worker named Luis, always in a gray hoodie, always nodding toward the pastry case like it's a secret we share. "Same?" I ask. He smiles. "Same." I pull a cinnamon roll and set it on a warm plate. While I steam milk, I catch my reflection in the chrome pitcher. Tired? Yes, but something else too. Settled. Or maybe rooted. At 7:26, the bell rings and my brother walks in. Evan has never looked tired. Even as a teenager, he woke up polished, as if sleep was an appointment. He crosses the room with that same confident stride he uses at family gatherings. Half apology, half performance. He hugs me over the counter, careful not to crease his blazer. "Lauren," he says, like a good news headline. "Place looks good." He glances around and I can tell he means it. I hand him a latte. I started the moment I saw him through the window. He doesn't have to say his order. He sips. "Okay," he says, eyebrows up. "This is great." He sets the cup down and leans in. "Listen, I'm meeting a client 2 blocks over, but I wanted to talk. I've been looking at some numbers. Denver small business survival rates, coffee margins, labor percentages. Hi, good morning, I say to a woman waiting patiently behind him. Then to Evan. 1 sec. I take an order for 2 Americanos and a cranberry orange scone. Make the drinks. He watches me like I'm a magic trick. When the wrapper crackles, he steps aside. As I was saying, he continues, pitching his voice low. I want to help. Have you thought about a partner? A small capital infusion could let you double your capacity. Hire 2 more baristas, add weekday lunch. Also, your Instagram's good, but it's not investor good. I could cover your ad spend for 6 months, help you scale. We can make this a brand. There was a time when my heart would have tilted toward him like a plant toward a window. A time when his approval felt like a door only he had the key to. I wipe the counter and remind myself I own my own set of keys now. I appreciate it, I say. But I'm okay. Are you? He says softly. Because I've seen this before. You get a spike, then reality. And then no one knows the difference between dream and debt until it's late. I peel the sticker backing from a new roll of labels. Evan, I say and keep my tone kind. Order something to go. You'll be late. He straightens, a flash of something I can't name crossing his face. He smiles again, easy. I'll be back, he says, tapping the counter twice with his index finger. And I'll bring Mom and Dad. They should see the place. I nod, like that would be nice. He leaves with a box of pastries for his meeting, and I exhale like I've been holding my breath since childhood. It didn't start as a rebellion. It started with a scent memory. When I was little, our neighbor Mrs. Kaplan used to make apple cake and let it cool in the open window of her duplex. I'd walk home from school and slow down as I passed. Late sun spilling over the sill, the air sweet with cinnamon and butter. I told myself one day I'd own a place that smelled like that memory, that something as simple as cake could make you feel like you'd arrived somewhere good. It took a decade of wrong turns and right ones. I went to a state college for 2 years, because that's what you do, then took a leave that became a goodbye. I worked the pastry station in a hotel kitchen, where the chef slammed pans when the soufflés fell, and the dishwasher told the best jokes I have ever heard. I waited tables and cleaned grease traps and learned how many minutes a batch of cookie dough can rest before butter decides it runs the show. I put tips in a jar marked Oven Fund and stopped going home for holidays if I could help it. My dad said that was unfair. My mom called me stubborn. Evan said I was making it harder than it needed to be, as if difficulty was a choice I'd made to make his life more interesting. Table for 2? A customer asks now, pulling me back into the rhythm of the present. I seat them, pour water, fold a dish towel over a tray of morning buns and think, this mundane kindness is the dream. At 10, a woman in scrubs rushes in between shifts and I tuck an extra cookie in her bag. At 11, a man with a laptop asks if he can stay an hour, then apologizes after 30 minutes for existing at all. I'm glad you're here, I say and mean it. Around noon, the door opens and my parents walk in. The last time they were downtown, it was for a fundraiser at a hotel with valet parking, not a corner cafe that remembers your name. My mom looks around with the face she uses at open houses, evaluating, imagining where her favorite rug would go. My dad stands a little too straight, like he's bracing for weather. It smells nice, my mom says. Cozy. I decide to accept this as the compliment it wants to be. I bring them lattes and a pastry board, and choose the table under the photograph of the old brick bakery that used to stand on this block in 1928. My mom traces a finger along the frame. You did all this, she says almost to herself. You really did it. We always knew you were determined, my dad adds. We just worry you choose hard roads. Sometimes the road is hard because it's uphill, I say. But that's where the view is. They chuckle the way parents do when you say something crafted and they are proud, but don't want to say that out loud yet. For 10 minutes we sit and eat in something like peace, and then my dad clears his throat. It's a sound that means more is coming. Your brother mentioned you turned down his proposal, he says. I didn't turn it down. I said I'm okay. I keep my voice even, my hands folded. I want to grow on purpose, not just bigger. Growth is purpose, my dad says. We can introduce you to people. There's a group at the club, small business guys, good ones, who could help you scale. If you want to compete, you have to play the game. Mom squeezes my wrist. We want you to be safe, she says, eyes soft. Not hanging by a thread. I'm not. I think of the spreadsheet I update every night, the cash flow graph trending up like a gently rising hill. I think of the purchase orders from a hotel that wants our morning buns for Sunday brunch. The florist who asked if we'd collaborate on a spring tea. I think of the children who draw coffee cups on our chalkboard wall in lopsided hearts. I'm building something sturdy. My dad glances toward the kitchen. Your equipment? Is it new? You can't run a business on hope and hand-me-downs. Most of it's refurbished, I say. I maintained it myself. I also have a service contract. I smile. I read the fine print, my mom laughs. You always did. The door swings open then, and a rush of cold air sweeps past. A man in a camel coat steps in, shakes snow from his sleeves, and orders a cappuccino with oat milk in a voice I recognize from the local radio station. He compliments the tile work, the cups, the balance of brightness and warmth in the room. When he leaves, he says, I'll be talking about this place on air tomorrow. Denver needs more spots like this. My dad watches this exchange, then looks at me, and I see something in his face shift. Something small, but real. Well, he says, almost smiling. Well. That afternoon, Evan texts me a screenshot from a neighborhood news site. New downtown cafe is a cozy standout. He writes, nice press. Then, still think you need a partner. Then, after I don't respond, a single thumbs up. The truth is, I'm not afraid of failing anymore. I've already done hard things. I have failed in smaller ways, quietly, and lived. A batch of lemon bars that never set. A pop-up that drew 6 people on a night I bought ingredients for 60. A business loan denial that stung because I had smiled too big when I asked. The difference now is that I know which failures are signs and which are noise. I know the sound my oven makes when it needs a gasket. I know the weight of a good day in my body, how my shoulders drop and my heart lifts, and the weight of a bad day too, and that tomorrow morning the yeast will still bloom in warm water, because that's what it was made to do. The thing about success is that it changes the temperature of rooms you were always in. 2 weeks after that neighborhood article, a bigger outlet runs a piece. How a downtown cafe built community without chasing trends. Customers come who never would have found us otherwise. A hotel concierge sends guests our way. A yoga studio 2 blocks over asks if we can supply granola bars for their early classes. I hire Mia, who loves latte art so much she practiced rosettas on hot chocolate for kids until she got them perfect. And Jorge, who can bake a tray of scones with his eyes closed and still notice when a regular needs a glass of water. We start a pay-it-forward jar, and people drop in 5s like it's the most obvious thing in the world to make sure a stranger's coffee is covered. Evan comes back on a Saturday when the line is out the door. He stays at the end of the counter, hands in his pockets, observing. He watches me move like I've memorized a dance. Pull shots, steam milk, call names, smile, check on a table, adjust the angle of a chair that wobbles because the floor dips near the window. He waits until there's a lull, then says, "You're in flow." I look at him, surprised by the softness in his voice. "I like it here," I say. "I can see that," he replies, as if this, finally, is enough data for him to trust. Our parents start coming on weekday mornings after that. Not every day, not even most, but enough. My mom brings her book club and orders the lemon loaf. My dad sits with a notepad and a pencil and pretends he is not taking inventory of the joy in the room. One morning, I catch him wiping a crumb from the table with his thumb and index finger in a small, absent, tender motion. He glances up, and I look away before he can make this tender thing into a conversation we are not ready to have. Here's where things get complicated. At the end of March, my dairy supplier emails a notice. Deliveries are being consolidated. Minimums are going up. Small accounts may see disruptions. The number on the new contract makes my stomach drop. I calculate how many lattes that is, how many morning buns, how many hours of sleep. I call other suppliers. Most are in the same boat. The city is growing faster than trucks can move. I can bridge the gap for a month, maybe 2. But I can feel the edge of the cliff with my toes, and it is not a feeling I want to make friends with. I don't tell my parents. I don't tell Evan. I call other cafe owners instead. people who compete with me for morning commuters, but still text me back because the secret truth is, we are in this together, or we are not in it at all. We talk about pooling orders, sharing storage, creating a buying group that gives us the volume we need without losing our souls to spreadsheets we didn't ask for. We meet on a Tuesday night at a pizza place with sticky tables and split a pitcher of iced tea. We make a plan. 2 weeks later, we sign our first joint contract. The rate is still higher than I want. It is also fair. It buys us time. I tell my parents after the ink is dry. My dad listens with his arms crossed. You should have come to me, he says. There are ways to negotiate these things. I did negotiate, I say. Just not like you do. He nods slow. You built a coalition, he says, like he's trying the word on for size. That's smart. My mom smiles at me like she's always known, even if she hasn't. Your grandmother would have loved this, she says. She used to put 2 teaspoons of vanilla in everything. Said one was for flavor, the other was for courage. I want to tell her I remember. I want to tell her about the vanilla I add with my eyes closed, because I can smell when the batter is right. Instead, I tell her she should bring me that recipe card the next time she cleans the old tin where we keep family things we're not sure how to talk about. There's something else, too. Something that looks like luck, but isn't. A writer from a regional magazine comes in on a rainy afternoon and orders a cup of soup and a slice of bread and stays for 2 hours watching the door swing, open and closed like a metronome. She asks if she can interview me. I wash flour from my hands and say yes. The article, when it comes out, is generous without being dramatic. It mentions our pay-it-forward jar, the Polaroid wall, the way the afternoon light turns the brick a color you can't name but feel. It mentions, briefly, that some people didn't believe at first, and that maybe the work was believing even when they didn't. Evan reads it and calls me, not with advice but with a question. Do you want me to stop telling you what to do? He asks, straightforward in a way that makes me put the phone down and sit on the floor with my back to the cabinet. I pick the phone up again and hold it to my ear. I want you to ask me what I need before you decide what I should have, I say. There is a pause on the other end, and then he says, Okay. The more the cafe grows, the more the shape of our family changes. Not because money or press fixes anything, but because confidence does. I stop explaining myself like a student defending a thesis I am afraid will fall apart under questioning. I start speaking like a person who has learned to trust her own hands. My parents stop sending articles about failure rates and start sending photos of muffins they baked on Sunday from recipes I wrote in a binder for them, notes in the margins like tiny conversations. Less zest next time. My mom scribbles next to a lemon bar recipe. My dad adds, bake 3 minutes more, across pencil lines like bridges. There is, of course, the jealousy. It doesn't come in door-slamming arguments or shouted words. It comes in the quiet places. In the way Evan's voice flattens when coworkers ask about his sister's cafe and he says, with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes, she's doing fine. In the way he lingers in the corner during a busy Saturday as if counting heads could count the value. In the text messages that start with congratulations and end with ideas for optimizing the menu, with screenshots of what competitors charge, with notes on how long someone waited for a mocha at 9:12 a.m. on a Tuesday, as if that one experience could define my life's work. I don't snap at him. I don't absorb him either, I tell him. I appreciate your brain. I'm building with my hands. We can meet in the middle sometimes, but not always. He doesn't love that answer, but he also doesn't leave. The night before our 1-year anniversary, I stay late after close, polishing the glass on the pastry case until I can see my face reflected back at me. I wipe down the table under the black and white photo of the old bakery again, even though it doesn't need it. I hang a new strand of warm lights over the window, my foot on a stool that wobbles a little like it's testing me. On the counter, a bouquet of peonies from the florist 2 doors down is opening slowly like a secret. On the back prep table, I have 3 cakes cooling. 1 chocolate with salted caramel, 1 lemon with mascarpone, 1 vanilla with strawberries that taste like July even though it's April, because the farmer who grows them picks them with a kind of care you can't buy. I set out extra mugs and extra napkins, open the back door to let the night in. I stand for a long time and just listen to my place breathe. The anniversary party is not fancy. It is exactly us. I invite the people who made it possible. Our first dozen regulars. The baristas who stayed through the "we have a new POS and it hates you" week. The neighbor who brought us a space heater during the cold snap. The guy who tunes my espresso machine. The woman who left a note that said, "I was going to give up today and your cinnamon roll changed my mind." I invite my parents and make sure they have seats. I invite Evan. He does not RSVP. He shows up anyway. In the middle of the clinking and laughing and small speeches that are more gratitude than language, my dad steps forward with a glass in his hand. He clears his throat, but this time the sound means something else. "I used to say practical people make practical choices," he says. I thought that was love. Safety disguised as advice. What I didn't understand is that courage is a kind of prudence too. It keeps you from living someone else's life. He raises his glass toward me. "To my daughter, for doing the brave math none of my spreadsheets could." My mom hugs me so tight I feel the outlines of all the times she wanted to and didn't. She whispers, "I was wrong," into my hair. She pulls back and adds, with a smile that is all bright edges and softness beneath, "And also, please teach me that chala braid with the 4 strands." Evan waits until the end. He hangs back by the Polaroid wall, looking at the faces, the notes. He runs a hand along the edge of the walnut bar like he's reading Braille. When he reaches me, he says, "This is real." I nod. He looks at the crowd, then at me, and he asks a question I never expected. "Can you help me with something that isn't numbers?" He says, a small laugh catching in his throat. "I'm thinking about starting my own firm. Not because I want more, but because I want closer. I don't know what that looks like when you take away the awards and the LinkedIn updates. I'm not sure I know who I am without the scoreboard." I study his face, the lines that are new, the boy he was layered under the man he is. "You'll figure it out," I say. "But if you want to know what you love, pay attention to what you do when no one's watching." He nods like I've handed him a map. "I'm happy for you," he says, and I can tell he means it even if it sits uneasily in his mouth. Maybe jealousy and joy can share a room. Maybe both can be true. We clean up late. My parents go home with a box of pastries and 2 potted herbs from the windowsill my mom insisted I let her babysit. Evan lingers and takes out the trash without being asked. When the door finally closes and the lights are low and the city outside is soft with the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you've earned it, I sit on the floor behind the counter and rest my head against the cabinet. My apron smells like sugar and coffee, and something warm I can't name. I think of Mrs. Kaplan's apple cake, of that open window, of being 8 and believing the world might be good. I think of the mornings I cried because the dough wouldn't rise, and the nights I smiled because it did. I think of the first dollar we taped to the back of the register and the way it looks now, creased, proud. The next morning we open at 7. At 7:06, a woman sits alone at a corner table, eyes red, stirring a cup she isn't drinking. I bring her a slice of lemon loaf on the house. She says, "Why?" I say, "Because some mornings you need someone to be on your side." At 8:10, a teenager in a varsity jacket asks if we're hiring, and Mia tells him to come back at 2 with a smile and an honest story about why he wants a job. At 9:30, my mom sends a photo of a braided loaf she made herself, the caption, 4 strands. Almost right. At 10:15, my dad texts me a picture of a spreadsheet he's redone for his golf league. Formulas neat, cell borders tidy, the caption, "Thought of you when I got this balanced." At 11:50, Evan walks in with 2 coffees from a place across town. He sets one on the counter. "Thought you'd want to try their roast," he says. He shrugs. "We can learn from anyone." "I like that," I say. We taste together like 2 kids at the same table for once, no one measuring our sips. Not every day is perfect. The afternoon rush gets wild and someone complains the music is too loud and a delivery is late and I scorch my hand on the steam wand and swear under my breath like I promised myself I wouldn't, but quietly because I learn. There are weeks when the numbers tighten and weeks when they bloom. There are new problems. Regulations I have opinions about now. Taxes I model with a precision that would make my brother proud. There are old ones too. Voices in your head don't retire. You just turn the volume down. Here's the thing I didn't know at the start. Chasing approval is a treadmill with no off switch. You can run yourself into the ground and never actually arrive, But building something, slow, steady, real, with your own hands, that's a road. It has landmarks. It has rest stops. It has people who wave when you pass because they recognize you, and you can wave back because you recognize yourself. A month after our anniversary, a community center asks if I'll host a class for teenagers who want to learn basic baking. They show up in backpacks and hoodies, hair in messy buns and hats pulled low, a dozen stories I will never fully know layered under the flour on their hands. I teach them how to read a recipe like it's a conversation. I teach them how to fold dough gently, how to wait without giving up, how to take something out of the oven before it looks done because carryover heat will finish the job. Trust the process, I say, and hear how that phrase sounds like a poster until you understand it with your fingers. They decorate cupcakes like small planets. One girl places a tiny sugar maple leaf in the center of hers and says, "I didn't know I could be good at something." I send her home with the extra leaf. "Take it with you," I say, for courage. On a Tuesday in late spring, a couple gets engaged at table 3. He hides the ring in a napkin and almost drops it in his coffee because his hands shake so hard. Everyone in the cafe claps when she says yes. My mom cries like they're family. My dad buys their drinks and then pretends he didn't. Evan sends a text later. "Did you plan that?" And I reply, "No. But I made the scones." The photo on the wall stays. The old bakery looks at us like a mirror. People built bread here long before I did, and people will long after I'm done. The thought doesn't make me sad. It makes me feel like I'm part of a story that started before me and will continue beyond me if I do my part well. Maybe that's what success is. Not a headline, not a spreadsheet, not even a line out the door. Though I am grateful for every person who stands in the cold to wait for coffee we made with our hands. Maybe success is simple. Maybe it's a room that smells like something you want to walk into. Maybe it's a place where your family can come and sit and learn new ways to love you because you've learned new ways to love yourself. One night, after we close, I bring the old tin of recipe cards home from my parents' attic. I sit at my kitchen table and line them up like playing cards. On one, in my grandmother's careful cursive, it says, "Add 2 teaspoons vanilla, 1 for flavor, 1 for courage." I smile and write it on the chalkboard above the prep table the next morning. Customers take photos. A kid asks if courage is in the spice drawer. "It's everywhere," I tell him. "But it helps to know where you keep it." So yes, my parents laughed. They called me impractical. My brother was the star. He still is. In a different sky. I didn't open a cafe to prove anyone wrong, not really. I opened it because some part of me believed the world needed more rooms that smell like welcome. Some days the work is heavy. Some days it's light. Every day I unlock the door, turn the sign, and step into a life I chose on purpose. Family should be about love, not control. Work should be about craft, not comparison. And the best kind of success isn't loud. It's steady, earned, and shared.